I must say, like, your family is literally like one of my favorite families on earth. Like, if there is one family that I feel like not only really like represents like St. Martin, really like from like just like the history of your family, but like you guys are like the most loving and like most supportive people I have ever met like on St. Martin. And I cannot imagine my life like not knowing your family because I love you guys so much. And it's like such an like a privilege for me to be so close with you guys and to like see how you all are just freaking powerhouses, just like incredible people, such loving people. And it's like I just am so inspired every time. I like love I'm just so excited every time I know I'm hanging out with your family. Like I know it's going to be a good day, you
Right.
know? Like I know like everything is going to be straight. But I'm
I
curious
love that.
like cuz you moved to the United States, which was like I feel like the first time like this was like in like middle school when people were like moving and I was like, "Wait, like people are leaving. Like what's going on?" And before that, like you were pretty much already like had a name for yourself on the island because you were an incredible singer, like you were so talented and you were smart, and then you left. And I was just like, "Well, damn." But you went to America, you found your footing, and you are just representing St. Martin. Like, I'm just so every time I see you post about like what you're going through with like med school and everything, like I'm just so proud because like I know like how much being a doctor is important to you and like just like being that milestone in your family, but also like to see St. Martin women out here representing
Yes.
excellence. Oh my God. Like I could cry. I'm just like, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. But I'm curious, like, how do you share your journey? Like, especially since you moved to the United States? Because I feel like when people hear your story, like, it's incredible. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, even I, when I came to the States, like, I was like trying to keep up with you. I'm like, this girl got 4.0. I'm like, "Damn." I'm just trying to, okay, I'm lucky. If Kyeisha can do it, I could do it, you know? But I'm curious, like, how did you I feel like did you always, like, know that you were, like, just, like, this super, like, just talented, just, like, super curious person? Like, I'm curious,
Right.
like, how did you like? Because I feel like you just seem like you've always been this way, but I'm sure, like, for you, you're just like, "I'm figuring it out, sis."
Exactly. No, it's the latter one. It's the latter for sure. I mean, first of all, I love that you started with talking about my family because the conversation was gonna go there eventually. Because I'm like, I'm literally nothing without them. But yeah, as far as the move and like looking back, it's like I don't know how I did it. It really was just. I mean, I was third. No, I just turned 14 when I moved, so it's like at that age, I really know who I am. Nevertheless, like what I'm trying to do or the impact I'm trying to have. And then it's like a year later, the blog starts just organically. And then from then on out, it's just been like people reading the story and, like you said, being like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm like, it's all truth. It's all me and just sharing the reality of what my life is. But the fact that people relate to it so much or inspired by it, that keeps me pushing to just like share it more. Um, but yeah, definitely also mentioning how I kind of made a name of myself on the island. Like, I think that's actually so funny because when I've gone back, I'd be like out at the bars and people come up to me, they're like, you were the singer, like you're like, and I think that's the best part about the island because like we really did know each other. Like, you know each other, you know each other's families, like, and coming to the States, none of that, you
It's
don't have any of that.
gone, like,
Like,
it's gone,
no
just
one
out
knew
the door.
right. The Flemings and French Quarter, like, who's that? Like,
Yeah, they're like, "I'm sorry, what's a French Quarter? You mean New Orleans?"
right.
Like
Right. Exactly. So it was definitely like coming here and just being myself, and people were still found that inspiring and still found that impactful, and that led to me making a name here in these huge universities and these huge, states and stuff, the same way that I kind of did on the island. So yeah, mostly I don't know how I did it, but
I feel you. Like you look back and you're like, how in the hell? Like even me, like I'll reflect and I'll be like, well, damn, like I done some shit, haven't I? Like you're just like, what?
yeah, that is exactly how it feels. But it's also so important to reflect too. I think the part about like sharing your story and like for me, whenever I meet someone, the first thing on my mouth is like, "Oh, I'm from St. Martin. Like I'm from a small island. I moved here like because I'm like just that part of reminding people where I'm from is like I don't want them to ever forget that. I'm like, you see me, it's St. Martin. Like I don't care how long I've been living in the States. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
am
from
not one
here.
of you, okay? I'm not. I know I look like it, you just see black girl, but I'm not.
Right,
It's different, like, I feel you.
exactly. That I think like that is just one like minor thing that I do that I think makes such a difference. And people remember that too. It's like, oh wait a second, she was the one from that island. And she had moved here. Oh yeah. And she also has a 4.0 and doing all this amazing stuff. And so yeah.
They're like, "If she can do it, what the hell am I doing?" I feel like it's, like, part of, like, that immigrant, like, hustle, like, when we move to a bigger country, like, we know where we're coming from, and we know, like, the grind that exists back there, and it's like, I feel like being born on St. Martin, like, you have, like, this just resourcefulness, like, this just, like, thirst, and I don't know, like, I've always admired that, and I feel like one thing that I struggled when I came to America was really trying to figure out, like, my identity, because it's like when you come here, they don't see you as, like, a Caribbean person, especially, like, I feel like we don't really have, like, strong, typical, like, Caribbean accents that people are, like, used to hearing when they think of the Caribbean. But to own, like, yeah, the first thing that you say is like, "Yes, I'm a Saint Martiner," like, to say that with pride, to let them know, like, "We here, like, we out here doing great things." I feel like it's so incredible, and I'm so happy, like, you feel so empowered to own that you're a Saint Martiner, because I feel like so many of our people don't recognize, like, how powerful they are,
Exactly.
how incredible our people are, and I'm like, "No, I am so proud to be a Saint Martiner. I would not wanna be anything else." Like, nah, like,
Literally.
what there's nothing better, like, why would I wanna be anything else? Like, St. Martin is I can't, like, it's
It's
everything. It's everything.
paradise.
It's paradise,
It is.
exactly.
I definitely felt that same identity like crisis because it was like first when I moved, it's new high school, everything. The goal was to fit in. I mean, that's what everyone does in high school, period. But a new country, like yeah, the goal was to fit in. I remember certain things I would say, and people would be like, "What?" Like I never had a thick accent, as you know. That can be a whole other
I
conversation.
feel
I had the lingo, you know what I mean? I had the slang, the words. I remember being in the locker room in high school, and I was like, "Anyone have any cream? Cream?" People looked at me, they're like, "Whipped cream? What kind of cream?" They're like, "It's called lotion." Like, it was little things like that where I literally started calling it lotion and like, changing the way that I was speaking, the way that I acted. But at some point towards the end of high school, it was like,
it doesn't feel
nah,
right,
like,
yeah, like, it's like you missing something, like, it's just like,
yeah,
ugh.
I was like, now I fit in too much, and now I feel disconnected from the island because the early is was me and my family in Aberdeen, Maryland. Like, there ain't no, we were not in New York, anything where at least you can
I
tie in
feel
a
you.
little bit.
It's just
We were
y'all, like
just us, and we had, I remember maybe one person in my high school that like their great great grandmother was Trinidadian. Like that was it. That's the closest I got to another Caribbean person. So yeah, that part is also hard with moving away. It's like, I think everyone has to go through the struggle of because your instinct is to fit in. That's just human nature. But just remember, stay true to who you are, and find ways to still bring that same artness in any place that you go. And I think I do that by like,
phenomenally, like, that one
oh,
photo,
thank you.
sis, I'm, like, thinking of it right now, I'm just like, "Oh my god," like, a queen,
With the flag.
queen energy, like
Really, I'm like, I tell it to everyone. I was like, when I graduate, I'm like, this is more than just me. I'm like, this is definitely for my island. One for my family, of course, but then the bigger picture is the whole community. It's the village. Like, it really took a village to get here. So,
But why Maryland? Like, out of every American state, what made you guys go to Maryland?
honestly, great question. So, we had my dad's brother already lived in Maryland, and so growing up, we would always come and visit. And it's Maryland's still close enough to New York, where there's a little bit of family, extended family members, in New York and stuff like that. And then like the school systems were good. We already knew the state, and that's how we ended up here.
I feel you. Stick
Yeah,
with what you know. Just like America is a big
honestly,
place.
exactly. And it's like if you can have any family members, that's where you go because it's hard to just be out here alone.
I feel that because when I moved to Michigan, it was me and my mama at first, just the two of us, and I was like, "Hello."
Yeah, it's
And
hard.
yeah, it is harder than people realize because it's like it's literally you don't even realize that it's happened until you've already left, and you're like, "Oh shit,
Yeah,
what did I do? What am I doing? Why are we here? Why did we leave? I don't understand."
honestly. And it's like when you start missing out on some of the milestones, you'll be like, yo, I used to be 15-minute drive and I'm at this aunt's house at this cousin's place. And now it's just like watching people grow up, my little cousins. And I'm like, you know how it was growing up. Like, especially my family, we were
Tight.
cousins and
Yeah,
siblings.
y'all
Like,
are
come on.
tight, tight as
We
hell. Like
were
that's what I've
very,
always
very close.
admired. You guys are so tight.
Yeah.
Like
Honestly, and now like we're all in different places as far as all the cousins that are my age. But yeah, it was hard to see like little cousins growing up and knowing that we would have been much closer. So yeah, all of that makes it really, really difficult. I always tell people like my family is like top priority, and so to be this far away, yeah, sometimes you just cry yourself to sleep. There's nothing else you can do. Like,
you're like we just, shed our tears and come back flawless, you know?
yeah, yeah. But the next day, ain't nobody know I was crying last night. Next day, I was like, you know what? I can either stay in bed and stay crying, or I'm gonna go hit these classes and go hit up these meetings and do what I gotta do. Like, basically, my whole like it motivated me so much because I'm like, why am I here? Like you were saying, but I turned that into like, okay, well, I'm gonna make it a reason why I'm here, and like
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna go
open
follow
these doors. I'm gonna
these
shatter them
exactly.
ceilings.
Exactly. I'm like, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm making this sacrifice to be this far away and not on a beach sipping a cocktail like with my family. Like, come on now. So that's really like my number one source of motivation, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, to have their support, I mean, I can only imagine like that. It's just that is really like family love. Like that's why I love you guys so much because it's like even though I'm not part of the family, I'm part of the family. You know what
Oh,
I
you are. I was
mean?
about to say,
Like,
absolutely. Any conversation, they'll be like, oh yeah, how's Harsha? How's this one? Like, once you meet the family, that's it.
yeah,
Like, you're in the
exactly. Like you
parents,
in it,
you're in our
and it's
class, you're
awesome.
invited to every event. Like, for
Exactly,
sure.
exactly. Like I was always there, always there. I'm curious, like, so what got you into singing? Or like what was like the first in like how did you know that you had talent for sing like actual like talent? Because you got the vocals, like
Oh my gosh, I have the exact story. So, I mean, first of all, I was singing since I was young. Like, literally, I don't know, like, since I could talk, I could sing, is what my family would say. But I think when I knew I had talent, it was the LU talent show, second grade, I believe. And it was like Miss Amisa, shout out to her. She was the choir director, and she had me do like a little duet. And all of a sudden, I'm there on the stage, and it was just natural. Like, I'm what, like 7, 8 years old. And I was just singing, and it was a whole performance. And afterwards, everyone was just like, kept coming up to me and being like, oh my God, like what? They were like, Miss Amisa, my daughter, can she sing like her? And she was like, it was so funny. No, but I think that's like my keen memory of like, wow, I loved being on stage, I loved performing. And then from there, it was just like talent show after talent show and like everything, getting started on the island and stuff. But yeah, shout out to LU. That was the first time.
yeah, I remember like you were just like winning. What was the name of that one competition? Child's Fest or something?
House
Some
fest.
something like yeah.
Yeah.
And you were just like
Mhm.
crushing it. Like you were reigning queen. Like I was just like, mm-hmm. That's our Beyonce, sis. Okay.
It's so funny. It's so funny because even now, I think that's just my personality. Like, I'm very humble because, like, even with the singing thing, people are like, you're so great. And, like, I thought I was, like, fine, but, like, I didn't really, like, I'd be like, y'all are still talking about my singing? Like,
Bro,
it's
I'm
so
tone
amazing to
deaf,
me.
okay? I sing in the shower and like I know I ain't getting no contract. Like you could get the contract. You know what I mean? I'm like, when you got talent, you got talent. Like it's a gift,
Yeah,
you know. Own it.
yeah.
But and just like but it's like outside of the singing, you are just also brilliant. And it's like it's not just you, like your mama, I don't know what recipe she's got. She's got to write a book because whatever
Mhm.
parenting methods, she's on fire. Like you are all so brilliant. Like do you think it's genetics or like how or have you just always been super curious about biology
Yeah.
and all that stuff?
I would say honestly, yeah, shout out to my mom and the way that she raised us, I think. And that's why I'm like, going back to family, I mean, there's so much that lessons that she got from her grandmother, so my great grandmother, on just like, yeah, putting your education first. And then from my mom, she was a teenage mom, so she had to stop school and start taking care of us. And so her main thing was like, I'm going to be the best mom that I can. She's like, I'm young, but like, I'm going to just do my best. And kind of from the start, whether it was singing or school, she just like, pushed me. She was like, "Hi, you're smart. you're beautiful, you're capable. And whatever dreams I had, she just supported them. And for me personally, I actually was like, I remember first grade, like I wasn't the smartest student. I'll say it's first grade, but see where I'm going with this. And it was like, but my mom was like, okay, these grades are good. Like, let's keep seeing, like, can you do better and stuff like that, and like encouraging me. And then by the next grade, once I started getting A's, I was like, wait, okay, I kind of like the feeling of this. Like, this is my best. And then, like, from then on out, I was just a nerd. Like, I just
Right?
loved
Just
getting,
like nerd, just
yeah, just the
bookmark
very
me,
best that I could
stamp,
do
nerd.
and putting a lot of pressure on myself, honestly. Like, when I look back, I'd be a little kid, I'm like, why was I so stressed about getting my, like, multiplications right? And it's so funny because, like, a lot of people I know have parents where their parents are the one pushing them and being like, "You gotta get this right." And my mom at that point was just like, "Look,"
I don't
she
even
was the
need
one
to
telling
do
me to calm
anything.
down.
Like,
Exactly.
like she got this. Like,
Literally. So, again, she kind of instilled in us the power of education and stuff, but then she's just been a supporter. Like, she sees what our talents are, who we are as a person, and just helped us shape that without trying to tell us who to be or what to be. And so, yeah, growing up, everyone thought I'd be a pop star. Even when we were moving, there's like a performance high school near us, and I thought I was going to enroll there and just do singing. Um, and then, yeah, then the doctor thing came up, which is a completely different, like, everyone in the family's like, what? She wants to be a doctor. Like, huh? What? Singing in the operating room? Because but everyone's been 100% supportive with that as well. And for me, it's like every single step that I take, whether it was going to high school and then for college, I never expected like, oh, I'm super smart, I'm about to kill it, I'm about to get straight A's. Like, I went in like, okay, I'm gonna do my best, let's see what happens, and then study my ass off, work my ass off because that's just my personality. I'm like, I have to do 100% of my effort, and then from there, just yeah, excelling throughout college.
and you make it seem like that was so easy. Just excelling throughout college, just excelling, getting all my 4.0s. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember like the first time like you shared your grades, because like as much as like I was a nerd, like I feel like LU, my class traumatized me. I could never share my grades again. I was like, these people on my neck, like, oh my
Mhm,
god, like you're great. I was like, I was over it. I could not even share my. I was too like just like defensive, from always having
mhm,
to defend being smart, that I was like, you know what? This ain't, don't ask me what I got because I ain't telling you.
mhm.
But when I saw like you share like your grades, I was like, as a fellow nerd, I was like, yes, this.
Yeah.
Get it. But I was like, damn, like, how is she doing this? Because at the meantime, like I'm in Michigan, just like
Mhm.
struggling through all of these like intro weeder classes, like going through like all the prereqs that they make you do, and like
Yeah.
hearing the struggles of all the pre-med students. I was like, I ain't taking that intro to bio. I hear that it's just traumatizing. Like, I had a friend that had to take that class like 3 times just to pass it. I was like, no, 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 no. But it was interesting because it's like, I feel like in Indian culture, they push you to go, either it's like be an engineer, a doctor, or you're a
Mhm,
failure. It's like one of the three.
mhm.
Pick your bed. And I didn't
Right.
want to be
Pick
an.
your
I
pick.
literally didn't want to be any of them, because I was like, well,
Yeah.
every Indian does that. Like, I don't want to just
Mhm,
be another Indian engineer or another Indian doctor.
mhm,
Like, screw that. And my dad was always like, yeah, be a doctor, be a doctor. And I was
mhm.
like, but I always struggled with like the fear of like, I knew I was never gonna be good with death, so I was just like, I can't, because I just know I love too hard that, like, I would get
Yeah.
attached to my patients. Like, it would be too hard for me to be like, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I
Yeah.
can," and then
I
knowing me,
know.
like, I feel like I would beat myself up about it, just like, "What could I have done?" And that's not, you can't do that as a doctor, otherwise you'll burn
Right.
out, it won't work.
Mhm.
And so I thought, maybe let me go do biomedical engineering, because I was like, well, I won't be a doctor, but let me build the cool stuff that the doctors can use, especially because, like, on St.
Exactly.
Martin, we ain't got nothing. Our
No.
medical is
Mhm.
a clinic, it's not even a hospital. And so I
Yeah.
was like, we need something. I'm like, maybe I'll go into that. And I ended up in engineering, and then I was just so motivated to seeing you thriving like in American colleges, just like showing people that it is possible, because I feel like on the island we grew up with this stigma of like, oh, we're disadvantaged, like we can't make it, like it's too hard for us. And you were like, "Nah, bro, it ain't too hard. We could do it. We've been able to do it. Just believe in yourself." And that was so inspiring for me. And it made me know, like, okay, if one of my islanders out here thriving, then you could figure this out. And then by the end, I was able to hit my 4.0 and I was
Yeah,
like, I
period.
did it. I
Yeah.
did it. But like, yeah, like your journey has just been so inspiring. And I'm curious, like, how was it like figuring out the whole like deciding to be a med student and like going through what the prereqs are for med school? Because I feel like it's
Yeah.
so in depth in the United States, and like you don't even hear a glimmer of that on the island. Like if you wanted to be a doctor, you wouldn't have had any of like that guidance to figure it out. But you have been doing so phenomenally well in your journey. Like I am so proud because you have it all like on lock. Like you have all the guide just like going through MCAT, like, getting all of your internships, like, I'm just, like, so floored by, like, how meticulous and intentional you are with your journey because it means so much to you. I'm just curious, like, because I know you're very organized, but, like, how was it navigating that? Because I feel like, yeah, like, you didn't have anybody to help you, like, you really had to just figure it out, like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely glad that, like, especially looking back, that sharing as I did inspire so many people. Because, like you said, it became a thing where it's like, yeah, we celebrate that we're from a small island, but I always tell people, small island, big dreams, like big goals, like that's not a limitation. And it was really interesting going to these schools where, like, we're talking about 30,000 undergrads. I'm coming in where it's like y'all have been in the States where you had access to these resources, had possibly people in your family that went to college, had just a whole different life, you know. But in the end, I graduated the top 5. And it still blows my mind sometimes. So like not only was I inspiring people from the island, but also my fellow peers where I'm like, look, I just got to this country. Like
right?
at this point it's 8 years ago, you know, but even when starting college, it was only 4 years. Like so it I'm really glad I share my story for that thing because as you're saying it, I'm like, this is powerful. Like, damn. But
Yeah, like
yeah, when it comes
exactly. That's
to
what like people don't realize. I mean, people don't realize like
yeah,
how important their existence is like to our society, like to our community. And like that's why I'm so happy to share your story because I'm like, oh my god, people gotta know. Like people gotta feel this because it's like it could be you. Like it could be any of
yeah.
us. It's just we gotta believe and support each other. Like that's it.
Mhm. Like when you go abroad, I think, and even like, yeah, the grades is part of it and the excellence, you know, in the academic sense, but it's also the impact. It's like what people remember you for. End of the day, with my professors or my peers, like everyone on the college campus are really going to remember is not that I just went into class, got my A, and left, but like I was helping my peers. I was like sometimes helping the professor, like, you know, like it was building relationships, building a
Yeah,
community, you know, helping people. And I'm like, that is to me what it means to be a St. Martiner. I'm like, we're legit the friendly island. Like that is part of what I was raised to do. Is like you help your neighbor, you know? And so that was what I was doing throughout college. And I really do think that good karma exists. I gave so much that now, yeah, I'm going through the med school process and I'm getting all these blessings. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you know, I'm proud of myself, but I'm also like, know that this is part of the bigger journey of, you know, the fact that I was so giving and the fact that I was helping all these people and the fact that I'm still doing that now, I really feel like that kind of energy is rewarded. So
it
just to put that
is.
out there.
It is. It's love. Like you're just giving, you're sharing love. And I feel like that is the like for me, love is the answer. I'm like, if we all just like started caring for our neighbor, you know, if we really
Mhm,
had that mentality of like, it's not just about me, like it's about all of us, you know, it's
mhm,
the bigger picture about what this represents. More people would, I feel like, own their power. I feel like that's what I think
mhm,
is lacking in the world. Like people are just not owning their power and they're not owning their voice. They're not owning their uniqueness because they don't see the value in it. And I feel like only now do I really realize, like, understand the value of it. And it's like so, like, that's why I'm so glad to see other people that can stand in that space and be like, look,
mhm.
like, I'm opening doors to show you that you can do this. And
Yeah.
it's just phenomenal. And it's so incredible, like, to say, like, "Yeah, I am a Saint Martiner, so I do what Saint Martiners do best," and of course I'm
Mhm.
blessed, like,
Yeah,
of course.
exactly. Literally. But I think honestly that love for like people is what led me to medicine as well. Like there's a whole like personal statement on why I ended up in medicine, but really it was once I moved. It was like a couple months after the big move that I lost my little cousin. And we already talked about how close family is and all that
Exactly.
means. and he passed away for leukemia. Um, and that was also a thing where I don't know if other people felt this on the island, but like part of the small island thing is I legit, when I was growing up, I thought cancer didn't affect us. Cause like the only time I heard about cancer is when I turned on the TV and I saw a St. Jude's Hospital commercial. Like very, very real. Like, and I think that's part of, we have such a small community that of course those different diseases and conditions were happening, but you weren't exposed to as many as like once I moved to the States, I saw so much more diversity, just period. And that also includes diversity in not just like skin color, but like in people's in their conditions, like, you know, what people look like, different cultures, and in health. So yeah, so the whole thing of him being diagnosed with leukemia, I was just like, what do you do? And then what do you do is you move away. Of course, he had to go to Holland to get treatment and just all of that. But yeah, that was really the spark that made me interested in medicine because I, as you mentioned, having that curious mindset, I wanted to know more about the disease and cancer research. Um, and then it ultimately took me back to my great grandmother. So, like, her legacy that I grew up hearing so many things, how she was giving and helped out the community, but also how she was one of the first midwives on the island. And she just saw that women were dying in childbirth, and so she went to a neighboring island, got her certification, came back to St. Maarten, and started helping women. And
Wow.
like her pride was that she never lost a baby, she never lost a woman. And like her hands, like, you know, led so many babies into the world. And yeah, that was the ultimate inspiration. And so, of course, I had to go on my own journey of finding that I had a passion for medicine. And that passion is also in women's health, where I want to be an OBGYN and I want to birth babies. And it feels like this like crazy way that God works of like, okay, I'm kind of following this exact legacy, like midwife to now, you know, she didn't have the opportunities to go to medical school back then. I do now, and I'm like, I'm literally can be the first doctor in my entire extended family. You know, a doctor from St. Maarten, and I do plan to like go back home and help the island as well. So yeah, so that like when I tell that story, I still get goosebumps as well
I'm
because
like
it's
about
amazing.
to cry. Like I'm just like, oh my god, like that is if I was reading, I'm like, admit her. Like what?
Mhm.
Like, oh my god, that is so touching. That is wow. It's beautiful. That is
Yeah,
so beautiful.
thank you. Yeah, don't make me cry as well when I think about it. Oh, I miss her a lot too. And
Yeah,
it's just like, I don't know, when you take those moments to really deeply reflect on like, what are the things that have made me who I am right now? And like, I can trace the fact, I feel very blessed to trace that back to like my great grandmother. Like, there was so much wisdom in knowing someone who lived such a long life until 96 and on the island and all the things she saw and all the things she did. And I'm like, what the world we live in now is very, very different. My life looks very, very different than hers. But I just feel like I don't know, I can carry on some of that legacy.
of
And I think
course.
like
It lives in
that is really
you.
strong.
Like
Yeah.
she's living through you. Like and I think like that's one of the things that I had to recognize too is like how much we carry like the dreams and the desires of our ancestors, you know, like
Yeah.
in just our being. And it's like how much of that motivates us to be who we are. You know what I mean? Because it's like I can imagine how many women in your family maybe she even had the dream to be a doctor but like it was just like
Right.
unaccessible for her but like you can live out that dream for her and it's like it's still in the family, it's still your blood, like it's the same
Yeah.
love, you know, that's just coming through in a different being and like that is so beautiful. Now I'm like I need to plan this so you could deliver my baby. I'm like okay,
Right?
how we run this
Oh,
math.
yeah, let me, yeah, girl, because the training, that's a whole other thing. I'm about to be in school for 4 more years, possibly five, because I might do like an MPH, and then 4 more years of training, and then I can deliver your baby. So just, yeah, calculate that out, and then hit me up, and I'll be there.
Bet. Okay, I'm gonna have to run the math. But what I'm curious, like, how has it been? Because like now that okay, you finish you going to like your undergrad to just be a pre-med student because like it's a whole
Yeah.
different ballgame. It's not like you go to college and you are studying to be a doctor right off the bat. You got to start
Mhm.
pre-med. But what was your concentration in pre-med? Because I feel like you had a very interesting concentration that did a lot of like lab research. And as a nerd, like I want to make sure that I understand exactly what you did because I want to get into it, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, like what was your concentration as a pre-med student?
Yeah. So for me, you're absolutely right. So I did my undergraduate degree in cellular biology and genetics. Yeah, it's I know the nerd. I was nerding out. I
Oh,
loved
that's
it.
so cool. Oh my god.
Yeah, it is sick. I'm like, yo, the way I talk about it, I be telling people, I'm like, well, the cell is like the basic unit of life.
Right?
So learning about the cell, I had a class where I learned about like everything that went wrong on a cellular level as the basis of diseases, which I thought was just like fantastic. Like it blows my mind to think about. And then genetics, I'm like, our genes are deciding what's going to happen in our body and everything, and also genetics is blowing up as far as future in medicine too, so that was good to just get the basics on all of
I
that
feel
as
you.
well.
CRISPR is the
Yeah,
future, bro. I can't wait to they already know what I feel like the media hasn't even started talking about all the stuff that they've been doing in genetics, and I'm
mhm,
like, wait till the media start popping off about. Cause right now they all obsessed with the crypto, but I'm like, when we start talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
what they're doing over there in then genetics labs, guys, it is all mind blowing, just
it
insane
really
work.
is. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's like it was just awesome to learn. And again, I really tell people like study what you love. I was like, I was in there like enjoying myself, like studying all that stuff. Even the chemistry I love as well. That also helped like with my academic success because I'm like, no one was had a gun to my head forcing me to learn this stuff. Like I said, I chose to be a doctor and I chose to take this major. Like so definitely like follow your own path in that sense because that brings you joy. I loved it.
The fact that you loved Orgo, I'm like, you really were made for that because Orgo was like, I mean, it was cool and all, but I was like, oh my God, why does everything have to be weighted on these tests? Like, give you some homework.
It was hard though. Like,
Yeah, I'm
I
like, you made it through all of that. Like, people don't even recognize, like, you're talking about it like it's so easy. And I'm like, I know what's in these classes. So I'm
yeah,
just like, oh no, sis, oof,
yeah,
awesome.
and thank you for mentioning that because I oftentimes I'm like, I downplay what I
No,
did.
like, that stuff is hard, like, oh my god, like, Orgo, oh, Chem, all of
Yeah,
it, like, cause it's different, like, I feel like, at least at LU, they didn't really like, we learn the sciences, but it's like, science is light, you know what I mean? Like, science is for privileged kids where you can kinda, like, fluff your way through, but in America, they not playing no games, like, it's, like,
mhm,
straight up, like, you need to understand everything. The mathematics, you got to understand the lab work. It's not like they're going to do the lab and you watch. Like, no, you are doing the
yeah,
lab yourself. You need to make sure you do that thing right because guess what? Now you're going to have to write a whole lab report based off of all the data
yeah,
that you just collected. And like, it was interesting because in LU, like, we didn't do any of like that for the most part. It was like Miss Notani did her experiment up in the front and we
mhm,
in the back watched if it unless they actually let us do it, which was a rare occasion, and then we had to come up with our lab report based off of her experiment, you know what I mean? It's just like very distant from actually being involved. But I think it's so awesome that you're talking about like you focused on the cell because I have been so one of the reasons I went into engineering and like biomedical engineering was because I was very much interested in like biophysics and just like understanding disease in the body. Like for me, that was
mhm,
really the question because I felt like I love medicine and everything that we do, but I felt like Western medicine was so caught up in treatment, but I was really
mhm,
obsessed with the cause. Like I wanted to understand the source, not the symptom.
mhm,
And it comes back to the cell. And I was always very curious with like this idea of what is it about a cell that takes it from being a healthy cell to a sick
yeah,
cell. You know what I mean? Like, what is it that changes in the cell that goes from it being a cell that's doing everything that it's supposed to do to make your body functioning to becoming a potential threat that might kill you? And the thing is like
yeah,
our body is dealing with these threats literally every second of the day.
yeah,
Like, there's something trying to
yeah,
kill us as I breathe and talk to you right
literally,
now. You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
our
legit,
body does such a great job at keeping us
mhm,
alive and like we don't even have gratitude for that. And I'm like, guys, so I'm curious, like how's it like how has it been just like diving into that world and like understanding that difference, especially like as a doctor where like your whole career is trying to fix that or like mitigate
mhm.
against that, you know?
Yeah. No, honestly, I love that point, and that's the part of the mind blowing thing is like when you learn about whether it's like oxidative stress that like and how the body. Or my favorite thing about learning about the human body is just like homeostasis. I'm like with everything, like whether it's like oh your like blood pH is a little bit higher, okay, well you're gonna start breathing a little bit slower. I don't know if I got that right. There's this whole
I
like
feel you though. I
mechanism,
get what you're
you
trying
know,
to say.
right, of things that happen. I was like, don't judge me, anyone that's listening.
She's like, "I am smart, but in this
But
moment, I may say something that could be slightly inaccurate. Just preface this,
exactly,
preface."
not for accuracy. But no, like it amazes me about the human body. I think as far as like trying to go into medicine, there definitely are parts of like being a doctor that not ideal, as you said, with Western medicine and just like treating symptoms and knowing that there's so many things that are causing these illnesses that are preventable. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to do an MPH as well. With my hope, I'm really focused on like
What is
health
an
disparities.
MPH?
That'll be a master's in public health.
Okay, okay.
So I'm hoping that with that will kind of focus more on, for example, what's going on the community aspect and
Beautiful.
knowing about health disparities. So, like, why is it that this one community that's mostly white has a much lower percentage of cancer and heart disease? But we look at the black community here and the rates are just skyrocketing. So, those are the things that I'm also really curious about. And then, like, not just, I think right now in the field of medicine, we know the statistics and we know the disparities. They're there, everyone has published them, and especially in the last year, after George Floyd, like, everyone all of a sudden paid attention to black people.
Right, they're like,
That just
"Oh, wait,
accelerated.
they're here, remember
Yeah,
those
yeah,
folks, the people that we steal all our culture from." Yeah, those people.
exactly. I was like, oh yeah, racism. Um, yeah, it's like I think all of that is really out there, and like what I want to do now is like, okay, we know these disparities are there. What are the steps we need to take to decrease them? So things like I mentioned wanting to be an OBGYN. It's like maternal mortality in Black women is something that I want to tackle. So that might mean, yeah, I'll be in the hospital, but I might also be like going door to door, making sure that these women are getting prenatal health that are at the most risk for not getting them or having, a child with low birth weight or complications. Um, so I hope that kind of answers the question where it's like, I also definitely have that interest of like, yes, treating people on the one end, but also like the preventative side and the community side. And that's where in my interviews, I go back to talking about St. Maarten too. Cause I'm like, I love us. I love our culture. And like, for me, my personal statement, I started it with bush tea.
That's what I was about to
Legit. Like,
say. I
I
was
went,
like, "How are you
yeah,
integrating our herbal remedies into the
yes.
mix?"
Exactly, because I'm like, that is what you grew up with. And I literally started the personal statement like, I was like, bush tea was the cure all. Like, someone's coming down with a cold, an ail, a little lining cold, a little whatever we call it, an ache, a this or that. Like,
Bush tea and some Vicks and you're good to go.
good to go. So that's how I started my statement. And like, and then just talking about cancer, and all of a sudden bush tea was not the answer. So obviously you want to learn medicine in order to find the other treatments and causes that can help us. But I do think that, as with anything, our culture still is important, and those things we grew up with are important. And like, I planned as a doctor drinking bush tea and using Vicks and like all of that stuff. But I do think that there's a balance, as with anything in life. And I think, for example, COVID was a huge example on the island where it's like, y'all, this is a real disease where you can't just drink lemon water and have
Go
this
lay out in
plan
the
and roll
sun.
that up. And yeah, so like sometimes it gets a little too far where I'm like, look, let's still keep the stuff that we do, but I think that's when it comes to having a trusted doctor as well. Like, growing up on the island, like, I didn't see myself as a doctor because what we had, like you said, the clinic, like, or we had two little French Quarter doctors, like, that like kind of just gave you antibiotics and then sent you on your way. Actually, a real problem if we, if we really want to dive in.
I feel
So
you.
like, we
Over
didn't have,
prescription of antibiotics is not
yeah.
good, guys. Like, we creating more problems for future humans. Like, hello.
Yeah, and just like, I don't know, like, it was nothing, like going to the doctor just wasn't, I don't know, it didn't hit the same. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. But I feel like the relationship with doctors on the island isn't super strong, like with medicine in general. And so my goal is to kind of come back as someone like, I'm from here, and I want to introduce the aspects of medicine that we should be paying attention to while still, like I said, keeping our culture. So obviously I'm at the start. I'm about to go into med school. I'm still at the beginning. I'm a baby. But as I go through my training, like, I really want to keep that in mind. And yeah, I'm excited to see, how I'll be able to kind of bring those together in the
Me
future.
too. I'm excited for this whole journey. I'm like, I'm rooting for you because I'm like, we cannot let Kyeisha burn out, okay? We as a community got to be there. holding her and be
Yeah,
like, "Sis, we got you through this. We gonna make it through them years, okay? These people
we
will
need it.
not ruin, you know,
Right.
like the dream."
Yeah.
But that is, I feel like I agree. Like St. Martin lacks like great data. I think that's really an issue. Like we don't have data to like really understand how our people's health has changed throughout the years and like what are the biggest ailments that, you know,
Mhm.
Caribbean people suffer from? Like, do we suffer more from cardiovascular related diseases, or do we? Because like you said, like we don't really hear too many stories of people that die on St. Martin from cancer because usually it's like within a family and they send their family members
Exactly.
somewhere else, and like it's not
Mhm.
something that's like ever dealt with locally, and so.
No.
There's a lot of like I think of misconceptions that we have about our own health. You know, like how many St. Martiners are suffering from diabetes? How many St. Martiners are obese because of the influx of like American franchises to the island? Like these are conversations that we should be able to be having, you know, to drive policy decisions, especially in public health. But without the data, how do you really know for sure that buying more ventilators are actually going to reduce the number of COVID cases on St. Martin? Like it's hard to really know that if you're just basing all of our policy decisions on what is working in America or working in the
Yeah,
Netherlands, which is a
representative,
completely
yeah.
different demographic than us, you
Mhm.
know?
Absolutely. Like, I think huge, and especially being interested in research, and getting involved in research, I'm like, yo, can there be a research study on, for example, like, what are the effects of the dump on the communities that live near it? Like, there's so many research questions that I have on the health on the island. And another thing too is our culture and health that I realize is like, as you mentioned, like not really knowing, oh, how many people are dying of cancer within my family, and I know other families. We literally do not talk about it. We see it as like, oh, if you get sick, it's like a personal failing. Instead of knowing, as we talked about, yo, your body, it's part of life. Like that's why we have medicine. That's why we're trying to mitigate health. But they see it as a personal failure, and then it's like a hush hush. Like, oh, we don't want to say that he had cancer. We don't
Or
want to
like
say
we
what
just
he
don't
died
want to
of.
like spread the bad juju, so we just gonna keep
Yeah,
it to a minimum. Let's not upset the good vibes, you know?
right. Versus it's like, well, actually knowing that what your grandfather died of is actually really good for your own health. Like you said, am I at risk for high blood pressure or heart disease? And but again, we don't have that strong sense of understanding that purpose of medicine and that education to know like, oh, these things are actually passed down. Again, going back to genetics or stuff like that. So it's like I really want to focus, as well as I hope other St. Martiners that are listening that are interested in public health, like coming back to the island and just
We
really
need
like
it. We need it
well, yeah,
so much.
the education, getting the data, everything.
Exactly, because I'm like, these are the things that we need to know to make our country great, to like make our people
Yeah.
great. And it's like I understand like our government doesn't care about stuff that benefits the people because like what money is in it for them. But it's like having actually great healthcare is actually an
Mhm.
economic driver. You know what I mean? Like the University of Michigan makes so much money because of the University of Michigan Hospital. That's like huge. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? That so many people all across the Midwest go there because they have a fantastic medical facility. So many
Right.
students go there because they have a fantastic medical facility with research to
They
do
do.
all kinds of different studies like the ones that you mentioned. And it's like, say,
Mhm.
Martin, we don't like we're like even the labs that exist on the island like are very small and they're even their capacity to run tests and it's like it's hard because I remember when I was young, I was still on the fence of like, oh, do I want to be a doctor or engineer? What we gonna do? And I
Right.
wanted to like do an internship at like the blood lab just to see like what
Mhm.
would it be like to actually be in that role. But they couldn't give me one because obviously I'm unqualified and like they
Yeah.
have certain standards that they need to uphold. But I think it's important like for our country to realize like there's so much potential for us to grow in so many different avenues that create so many opportunities not only for like say Martiners like you that are going abroad and doing the hard work to get the education so that we can actually ask these kinds of questions, but it's like
Right.
what makes you think that scientists in America wouldn't want to do their cardiovascular research in St. Martin? Like
Mhm.
why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to study Alzheimer's in St. Martin? Why wouldn't they want to study mental health in Paradise?
Yeah. No,
The effects of
absolutely.
hurricanes, you know what I mean? Like on all of these different factors. And like you said, like the dump, I feel like the reason they don't want that research, Kaish, is because they know that if they show the people the
It has to.
truth, people will feel
Mhm.
some type of way.
Yeah, it has to.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Absolutely agree. And I know, I mean, there are limitations. The island is small, but like we said at the start, I think one of the takeaways of this podcast will be like, don't let it be like your overall limitation. Like, there's still some things when it comes to our health, I think are quite possible, even though we're a small island. Like, so yeah, I'm excited, hopefully, to see where it goes. And like you said, I think health and politics should be separate. That's something that happens here in the States too. Like with just everything. It gives me a headache with COVID and stuff. And it should be on the same on the island. Like health and politics, it doesn't matter if it's making money or not. Like people's health, I'm so passionate about it. Like I think it's one of the biggest blessings to be healthy and to try to keep people healthy. And when they're
Exactly.
unhealthy, I'm like, I want to be there, by their side, taking care of them, letting know it's going to be okay, and just trying my best to make them healthy again. But yeah, a lot of it just starts in the community from what we eat, exercise. There are genetic risk factors, mental health as well. That's a whole other topic. But yeah, there's so many things that go into like what is health. And I think what I like about it too is it's so multidisciplinary. Like the fact that you and I can have a conversation, we'll probably get even more in depth about healthcare and from like the different technological spans points and engineering from the public health or a nursing perspective and just all of it. So those are the things that I love and I'm excited. Like I would love to see on the island just like a bunch of St. Martiners with advanced degrees just like doing the shit, like
Right?
just
Just out
really
here
advancing the world.
building out
Yeah.
every sector, like all collaborating because we all know and love each other. And it's like
Yep.
our people are just like it's just amazing. I feel like it's
Yeah.
like I was reading this paper that calls like referred to St. Martin as like this new Jerusalem or like just like this paradise on earth. And I'm like, yeah, bruh, I see it. I
Mhm.
see it. Like the
Mhm.
island is beyond blessed. And it's like I just want the people to realize it for themselves. Like realize
Mhm.
how lucky we really are. Like guys, oh my god. But I'm curious, like, are you currently working at the National Institute of Health or you
I
did
am.
your okay, okay. How is
Yeah.
that? Because like obviously I love to read all of their studies because it's like, we trying to get real information, not
Mhm.
misinformation out here in these
Yeah.
streets. But yeah, I'm
Mhm.
curious like what is it like working at that institution because I feel like it has a big role in the United States and just in like the medical world. Like to be
Yeah.
working there is freaking lit. Like oh my god.
No, it really is. Some days I still like kind of pinch myself when I walk through the halls and I'm like, this is the National Institutes of Health. Like
Yeah, duh.
the
Like
literally. It's awesome. Like honestly there you just see like innovation because it's a hospital, but it's a research hospital. It's the number one research hospital. So it's like you'll have people from across the country coming here for their care to get whether it's an experimental drug or treatment that the scientists are trying to study to see if that can be the new standard of care, or people who have rare diseases that only affect like hundreds of people on an entire earth, and you have the specialist for that disease is at the NIH. So that is just like amazing to me. And again, just a little island girl walking through, doing my thing. On my standpoint, this is basically my gap year between undergrad and medical school. And I'm like, there's no such thing as a gap. Like, this is my growth year. I'm in here and I'm learning like more things about how I can be a better researcher, how I can be a better doctor as I get into medical school. And so it's just awesome. Like I'm learning so many different skills that I know is going to further me down the line in my career. Maybe I'll have an appointment at the NIH, in a decade from now when I'm finally done with my training. So yeah, it's really, really cool to just be in a space where all of the research is coming out, whether it's any condition that you can think about, you can find it at the NIH.
that is so cool. What do you currently work on at the NIH if you're allowed to share? Because I'm sure they be doing some confidential
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I could definitely share. So for me, as I kind of mentioned, I'm really interested in like health disparities and really focus on like Black people. And so my research focuses on sickle cell disease and alpha thalassemia. So those are
Mm.
both genetic blood disorders that are common in people with African ancestry. And so we're basically studying the vascular effects of those diseases. So how it's affecting like your blood vessels and blood flow, and the whole vascular system. So it's awesome. I don't want to go too in depth and like bore
No,
everyone,
go
but
all in depth. Like I'm like, this is the pod for that. Like I'm like, you're talking to a fellow nerd, okay? I'm like, I love all of this stuff, Kyeisha. Like I love it all. So please, like
yeah,
the listeners might be like, oh my god, nerd stuff. I don't care. I want to hear it. Like,
interesting. So basically, what we're looking at is basically a new role for hemoglobin. So that is the protein that's in your red blood cells, but we also find it in your blood vessels, and we think that it's helping to regulate nitric oxide release, and that has to do with how your blood vessel is gonna expand and contract.
Interesting.
So without getting into too many details, 'cause I think we still have to publish. But basically, yeah, we're looking at, as I mentioned, alpha thalassemia, sickle cell disease. Those are both conditions that affect hemoglobin, and seeing how that's affecting our blood vessels and how that may affect, risk of other vascular conditions like stroke, kidney disease, um, yeah, like your blood pressure in general, different conditions. So we're kind of basically like, we're kind of a lab where we're not um, doing like a specific drug trial or something. It's more like, here are all these different research questions that we're asking, and then we work with volunteers, we work with their samples, we work in the lab, and we're just understanding more. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and definitely, I think we're working on some publications, so I'll send you them.
Lit. Yeah, is this will these be like your first official like publications or do you have other ones already out there in the streets?
Yeah, I don't have any publications. I think my name will be on the ones that come out just because of my contributions. I'm also working on a separate project that if I publish, I'd be first author. So I'm trying.
Awesome.
It's hard because I'm only doing 1 year, and as you can imagine, it's a lot to try to do all these different things in a year. But I'm hopeful that, yeah, maybe I'll be able to publish. So just stay tuned. Look your girl up on Google on PubMed in a couple years.
Be like, there'll be some St. Martin studies out
Yeah.
there by St. Martiners, you know? Yeah, no, I'm super excited. That's awesome. That's so awesome. It's always cool when like you know somebody who's like authored a paper. You're like, oh my god, I actually
Mhm.
talked to this person. Like I know
Right.
them. They
Yeah.
smart. Like
Uh-huh.
that is so
It's
cool.
so cool.
'Cause, like, at
Yeah.
Michigan, I did a few, like well, my because I was a part of because Michigan is also, like, a very big research university, and
Oh,
so
for
my
sure.
first year, I was, like I lived in, like, a learning community. I don't know if University of Maryland has the same thing, but they're, like
Yeah.
pretty much it was focused on research, and, like, my first year, we were doing, like, protein studies, and it was more of, like, to come up with, like, algorithms to pretty much try to synthesize, like, different protein structures or, like, design proteins and
Oh,
the goal
yeah,
was
yeah,
I forget why we were doing this. I know it was like they wanted to pretty much come up with different protein designs and then
yeah.
create
Mhm,
them in the lab and then test them to see if they had like different benefits. I'm forgetting for what disease,
mhm.
but it was definitely like some sort of I want to say like brain disorder or
Yeah.
something like that. But it was
No,
really
that
cool
sounds
to
so
just
interesting.
understand like how they even how proteins actually look and how they're actually formed
Yeah.
and like just the different structures, the chemical properties of proteins. Like
Mhm.
it is just mind-blowingly complicated. And it's like
Yeah.
just like even trying to figure out how to design proteins is so difficult. Like that they have just been like at it, just trying to figure out
Yeah,
like what is the recipe to get this thing right.
exactly.
Like
That's why as you said that, I was, like, smiling because 'cause I'm like, "Wait, that's actually really complex." So it's like biochemistry,
yeah.
and, I'm also a biochemistry nerd, so I love it, and it's like, when you learn, you're like, "Oh my gosh, like, these amino acids, and they go together, and if you form this kind of bridge and this connection," and, like, determining the right fold of the protein, and I'm like, "Okay, this works, like, biochemistry and, like, physically and, like, all the delta G's and everything is so cool." And then if you have something that's not folded well, this also relates back to disease. That's why I
Exactly.
always tell people, I'm like, yeah, these classes, they're a lot, but like, they're a reason why we have to learn them for a
Yeah,
reason.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, they fold incorrectly. Your body tries to remove them, but there's certain diseases that are just caused by misfolded proteins that will then
Exactly,
mess up the whole system.
exactly. And, like, they were just trying to figure out, like, how can we fix this? Like, is there a way that we can
Yeah,
figure out what is that delta G literally that
right.
would get the
Yeah.
right folding properly on, like, the alpha whatever, I don't
Hmm.
even remember. But
Alpha
yeah.
strand and beta
Yeah,
strand. Yeah.
exactly. Pretty much. Exactly, exactly, exactly. And it's
Oh
like
my
when
gosh.
I switched into engineering and I like decided to be an electrical engineer, I still like had like, you have to do some like cross curriculum classes and I still always
Mhm,
loved biomed because I love biotechnology. And it was super interesting because I was doing my first like intro to biophysics class and it was all about like the electrical system of the body and like but it was, like, not even
mhm,
looking at it from, like, the neuron perspective, but, like, taking that
mhm,
neuron model, but then looking at it from the perspective of an engineer. And it's, like,
mhm.
understanding all of those different concentrations because in like typical electrical systems, we have like electrons that are our unit of energy, but in the body, it's a concentration between like sodium and
Mhm.
potassium. And it's
Mhm.
like understanding that firing mechanism and like how that affects
Mhm.
like different neural processes, mind-blowingly complicated. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god," like, and it's like all the stuff that they're trying to do with like deep brain stimulation and like what Elon is working on with that Neuralink. Like, I'm just like, "Oh my god, they figuring stuff out." But
Yeah.
even that, it's like people don't recognize like how incredible the body is, like how much we
Yeah.
don't even know about the body. And it's like we're all
Mhm.
alive, living every day, and there's so many questions that we don't even know where to begin. Like dreaming,
Literally.
no clue. We have no clue. Consciousness, we
Yeah.
still are like, I don't know how I'm seeing all of this, but I guess we here. Like there's just
Right.
so much like Alzheimer's, so much research still needs to be done. Even just understanding like you were saying, like this whole state of homeostasis, and it's like what takes us out of homeostasis long enough to create an environment that allows like cancer cells to thrive.
Yeah.
Or it's just really interesting because it's like we don't think about these things, and it's like each of us are so
No.
different, and like our balances are a little bit different from each other, and we're all just trying to figure out like how do we keep us all alive. It's like
Mhm.
when there's everything trying
Literally,
to kill us.
it's amazing. It's amazing. Like you said, we wake up every day and we're just when you sit down and you learn in these classes, it's like, wait a second. Like we said, like the firing thing. I'm like, I had to learn everything about the pumps. I didn't know every single amino acid. Like I'm knowing all these little details. And then I started learning system wide. So how the heart works, how my lungs are working. Oh, the lungs are so complicated. Don't even get me started. How the kidney is so complicated. Like it's mind blowing. And then you take a step back, like right now, and it's like all of this is happening all at once right now, all the time, just to keep me alive. Like what?
You're
It's
like,
crazy.
how am I not exploding right now? Like, how is it
Literally.
happening correctly so many times that there's billions of us
Mhm.
just roaming around, clueless
Yeah,
about what's going on, and we're still like we're here.
yeah, it's amazing, and it's funny because they say when you're a med student as well, you think something's always wrong with you, probably for that same reason. It's like, oh, did my heart like beat a little weird? Oh, I'm in heart failure. Like, so I'm gonna be excited to. I'll definitely share those moments as I experience them
Oh
because I can
yes,
imagine I've
please.
only tipped the iceberg of medicine, you know. So like as I deep dive, it's gonna get even more like
I swear,
crazy.
because everything on WebMD is like you died of cancer, and I'm like, is it? I felt the lump. I don't know. Like, what's going on? It's over. It's over.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But it's like even like just understanding like how much medicine has helped us live. Like all the
Mhm.
advancements in technology from like contacts to like coronary
Yeah.
stents to like artificial hearts to I'm just like, holy hell. Like even the technology that I'm curious, like, have you been studying a lot about like the history of gynecology and like just like the way in
A
which
little bit.
women have
Yeah.
been delivering babies, or like at least even across different cultures, or like in tribal settings versus like
Mhm.
home births versus like
Right.
I'm curious, like, have you had a chance to study all that stuff?
Yeah, I haven't really studied it. It was more so like on my own time trying to like understand that. Cuz that too is also like as with everything it's like I think again I go back to kind of balance. So it's like okay, we have been giving birth for all these years. On the other hand, humans have been dying for a lot of years. So it's not necessarily let's go all the way back to, no medication, no nothing. But I'm definitely like I said, I think like being having that upbringing in St. Martin, I like that idea of keeping things natural and like, homeopathic. And so I'm excited to when I go into after med school and then when I'm an OBGYN, getting that training to kind of learn more and see like when that balance can occur. And like do we also always have to use like the Pitocin and the labor stimulating and all the drugs and again, I know they're necessary sometimes and I'll learn when. But yeah, I'm excited as I get it like dive into it to kind of have that balance I hope to
I'm
bring.
like, I'm now thinking because I tried to do the math and I was like, okay, I was trying to have my kids before 30, but I'm like, you gonna be done after I'm
Girl,
30. So I'm like, crap,
I'm
okay. I'm like, how am I gonna
yeah.
do this? Because it's like literally everything you say. Like I, as a woman, like I don't know how you feel about childbirth in general, but like I'm
Mhm.
scared to death,
Yeah.
literally scared to death, just by like the horror stories that women go through when it comes to childbirth. Not even the women of color. Okay, we're just saying
Mhm.
women now first,
Yeah.
and like it's just so scary to like just have this whole like I'm like the whole growing like that I love the whole idea of the
Yeah,
implanting, the growing, over the I feel
yeah.
like I'm gonna be so obsessed with the
You're gonna be
condition.
checking it every day.
Bruh, I'm gonna be like, can I engineer something in my house so I can have my own like what you call it,
Yeah.
ultrasound machine so I
Uh-huh.
can just like at home like let me see what homie is up to in there.
Yeah.
But it's like the whole like giving I've always also wanted to be very natural in my whole childbirthing
Mhm,
process. Like if I could do a home birth, I will do that cuz I
mhm.
love hospitals for what they are, but do not want to be in one. Like don't please
Yeah,
like just let me I don't know. But I'm trying to
yeah.
figure it out. Like I just feel like it's so scary. And like they talk
No,
about like humans having like one of the more painful birthing experiences of like all other species of animals and like just like as much as our human babies' heads have grown, the passage has not grown with
mhm.
it, you know? Like, I'm just like,
Just, like, looking
it's
down,
just
like,
a lot
ouch.
of red flags, and like the tearing, all of that, it just
Mhm.
doesn't sound pleasant. I'm like, oh my
No.
God.
Honestly, the only thing I think that makes me feel okay about it is knowing that, we got here because our mothers did it, and
I
so many
know,
people
right?
did that with me.
I'm like,
They
if they
went through
did
it,
it,
so can I, hopefully. 'Cause
I don't know
that's
how.
scary.
Like my
I
mom
don't
was just like,
know.
I sneezed you out. I feel like that's my story of entering the world. It was just like achoo, and up came this tiny little baby, and I was like,
Oh,
I wish, I wish.
maybe I'll have the same. Like
I
like
don't
I said,
know,
some things are
Kaisha. If you've seen my
genetic,
boyfriend,
but
he's got broad shoulders. Okay, like I'm nervous.
ooh,
I'm nervous.
literally, I'm done. Yo, yeah, that might be rough. I don't know.
And it's like the whole
Yeah, but
C-section process too is like it has its own, pros and cons. So I'm just on the fence. I'm like, I want them to figure out a technology for women to be able to give birth, like all naturally, but just not like through our body. Like if there's a way to teleport the baby out, like I'm like, can we
and boom,
spend more
maybe it's there.
engineering power on figuring this problem out? Like we have missiles, nuclear weapons. When can women have a technology where we don't have to give birth anymore? Like let's hear. I'm for it. Talk about equality. Like this
Yeah,
is the struggle that we need to
right.
overcome.
I love it. And then just add periods and like cramps and all that to that list as well. Because yeah, it'd be
Exactly.
hard.
I'm like, I would be so much more phenomenal if we could just like figure out how to deal with those two things. Like then
Yeah,
I feel like women are power like truly unstoppable because cramps
yeah,
are not a girl's friend. They not out here to
no,
make us feel good. I'm like I swear, if dudes had a cramps the way girls had cramps, we would all be on vacation at least once a month,
yes.
getting pampered,
Mm-hmm.
and spoiled, and we'd probably get paid to have periods. I feel like if a man if it were the other way, like ugh.
No, like legit, they couldn't handle it at all. They really couldn't. The weaker sex.
And then like we're supposed to do I'm like, oh my god, like y'all really not women are warriors.
Yeah,
Warriors. We bring life and we still out here keeping things calm. Like
honestly. But no, I think a lot about like even when you just saying like doing the math on when I'll be done with training and also like I don't know going into this intense field and thinking about I also want to have kids like I want to be a mom and like all that stuff. I think the most thing I can say is like I just try not to let it stop me because I'm like I look at other people. Same way people are like, "Oh, you inspire me." I'm like I'm inspired by other people as well. Also on social media or blogs where they're like they did it too. They had kids while in medical training and stuff like that. Because yeah, I will be done. I think I either like 29 and 30. So it's like it's a long road. It's a long road ahead.
yeah. And it's interesting because as I shadowed, because I was trying to figure out what doctors do in college, because I was like super curious and I was trying to think about how I could build a technology that would be useful for physicians. Because I was like,
Yeah.
doctors are our champions and they wasting way too much time with data entry. Like, nobody signed up for this. Like, nobody signed up
No.
for this. That's
Yeah.
like one of the untold, secrets of
Mhm.
doctor struggles. And
They spend the most time like
yeah,
just
just like
notes and
making notes for insurance companies that just gonna bill you anyways. It's just a whole conundrum. But it was so interesting to like see like the stories of physicians and like I had the privilege of like luckily from just talking to this amazing physician to shadow her clinic and she was in charge of breast cancer at the University of Michigan. Like she had her clinic there And it was just so incredible to like hear the journey of women physicians just like figuring out like how to have children during your like medical degree program and timing it right. So like when you're
Mhm.
done, you also like have your kid and you're not like feeling like you're, giving up one versus the other. But she was trying to make me get a whole medical degree and a PhD, Kaisha. She was really on me. I was like,
Woo!
sis,
Ooh,
I
the big
appreciate
together.
you supporting me, but like I don't want to be in school that long. Like I'm over it. I was like, engineering was enough. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. The MD PhD is another. Like, I also considered it. People encourage me, but end of the day, I was like, it's all about what you think you want to do. I'm like, my career goals. I don't think I need a PhD, so I'm cool. But yeah, because that's now 8 years, and then you still got to do residency. So
I was like, but she had like a whole map of how you could do it together and like knock it out at the
Mhm.
same time and get paid pretty much to go to med school,
Yeah,
which I was like, but yeah, I'm so proud of you. Like you have a full ride. Like I feel like most people when they're nervous about medical school is always the cost of medical school because you always hear doctors just bitching about my student loans, and you're like that shit paid for. Like
yeah.
I'm so proud. I'm
You
curious,
know,
like,
they
how
just
was
wanna.
it figuring out how to fund your medical degree? Because like that ain't
Mhm.
no joke. That is a hefty education.
Yes, it's big. I think it's like average. I would say between like 300 to $400,000 for your MD degree. Um, and yeah, I'm like, this is a lot of money. And people say, which is true. As a doctor, again, plenty of people have gone through med school and they have these loans, and you'll make money as a doctor to pay it off. But at the same time, if you can save that money, like that financial freedom, the way that I explain it is like, I really see God setting me up to be able to do what I'm meant to do, my purpose. And the stuff that I talk about is like, I could see myself being in academic medicine, doing research, doing community stuff, nonprofit in St. Martin, or like doing things on the island as well. And I'm like, these scholarships, not having to have all that debt will definitely give me the freedom to make those career choices versus going into like private practice to make enough money to pay it off, for
Yeah,
example.
exactly.
So that's where, again, I don't know, my mindset, I'm always like, it's bigger than me. I'm like, this is for a bigger purpose. So yeah, as far as funding, honestly, as like all of my acceptances have started coming in and realizing just how competitive of an applicant I am, I'm like, yeah, y'all, like, okay, show me the money, like legit. And I think learning how to advocate for myself has been a huge thing that I've learned in this process. So like I said in the beginning, I do underplay myself a lot. Like I know
Like
I
you
do.
are
And so
phenomenal, bro. Like you are so brilliant. Like when I'm talking about St. Martin excellences, like excellence. Like when I'm like, I wish. Oh, I can't wait for St. Martin to get their shit together and start actually like
mhm,
documenting who in St. Martin are actually movers and shakers. Because I'm like,
mhm,
I got the list. You want me to
right.
send you my list of movers and shakers? Because I got a list. Like
Yeah,
you on the
let's do
list, just
it.
so you know, you on the list. Like
Oh my god, thank you. Can you imagine like a panel or like an event on the island? Like we need, and then
that
bring
is
all
that
the
is
youth
bro,
in.
I want that so bad for the future. Like if
Yeah,
Empower You can get to the point where we can host
yeah,
panel discussion, oh
yeah,
my god. That's literally what I'm working towards. Like I want that
yeah.
for our people. We deserve it. Like I'm like we need these
Yes.
conversations for the
Yeah.
people.
No, that would be amazing. Yeah. So as you said, knowing that Caribbean excellence, knowing that like I'm like, okay, I got this. Like something I'm also doing is gonna be negotiating my offers and like also asking for more money. So I'm like, look, this is what I'm bringing to the table. These are the other schools that want me. What can you do for me? So I'm excited. In the end, it's still a couple more months before I know where exactly I'm going. But I'm gonna share it all. I'm gonna share these schools because it has been, yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
I know. I'm like excited to see the list because I'm like, I know. I'm like, like if I were a university, I would be desperate to catch you. I'd be like, ooh, that one, that
Yeah.
one. We need that one. Like you are
Mhm.
just like you said, like you are an incredible candidate to have in any program. Like they would be so lucky to have you just because of who you are and what you represent. You know what I mean? And like even me, like I play down my power and I have to be like, nah, like you need to recognize like who you are and what you represent for your people. And it's like owning that and showing them the value. Cause like we as St.
Yeah.
Martiners know, like St.
Mhm.
Martiners know how incredible you are. It's showing
Mhm.
the rest of the world who have been sleeping on us to wake the hell up. Cause we ain't here to play games, you know?
Yeah.
Like we here to change
Literally.
the world. Like we're here to do great things to because that is who we are. that is just
We
who we
are.
are.
We're amazing. I love it. I hope anyone that's listening, like, that's the main takeaway. It's like, do you want to know how to be great? Like, be yourself, your true self, your St. Martin self. Like, all of that. I'm like, all I did with this whole med school thing is like, I literally just told my story and I showed up and I was myself. There was no tricks. There was no like shadow or like window I was trying to hide behind, trying to be someone else. I'm like, just being yourself. Like, that really takes you far.